J.J. McKay, man, myth, legend, and you have a kick-ass panel here. This is going to be fun.
I mean, David was on fire on the last one and does such an amazing job, but I think I have the best panelists. These are three of the best tech minds in the entire industry who are going to walk you through everything. John, Chris, and Madison are a wealth of knowledge, and we are ready to get started.
Get in there. Have fun, you guys.
All righty. Well, I know the crowd doesn't want to listen to me, even though we are the Fresh Shows, the largest voice in cannabis with 1 million people seeing our content every day, not only direct to our site, but to our 1.5 million social media followers, 80% of America's doctors, and in newspapers in your hometown. But let's talk about y'all. Let's start it all off. And I'm going to start with you, John. Tell us a little bit something about you and your company.
Hi, I'm John Lowen, one of the co-founders at Surfside. So Surfside has, we've got an end-to-end marketing platform where we're working with brands, dispensaries, ancillary businesses, helping them utilize first-party data and Surfside data in order to better reach customers, whether they're existing cannabis consumers, new customers in the space, but ultimately activating kind of first-party data for marketing purposes and customer acquisition.
Madison.
Hey guys, how's it going? Madison Fiore, head of growth here at Hawk Media. Work on the brand development, performance marketing, and venture capital side of cannabis. At Hawk, we're a fully outsourced CMO and marketing agency. Work with a lot of brands in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and I kind of lead up a lot of our cannabis efforts, both THC, CBD, delivery services, and a lot more. I'm excited to work with all you guys today.
Love that. And Chris.
Yeah, thanks so much. Glad to be here. Chris Ostrowski. I'm the CTO of Duchy and one of the early team members as well. Duchy is a cannabis retail technology platform. So what that means is, we really exist to empower retail partners to, transact business, whether it's through e-commerce, whether it's in-store technology, with a heavy focus on compliance, reliability, security, really providing the whole omni-channel package for retailers in the cannabis space.
And Chris, I'm going to ask all three of this. Where do you think we are right now in a short synopsis? Where do you think we are in the state of legalization and marijuana in the U.S. and the world?
Sure. I mean, I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that these are the early days, right? These are the feel of the early Silicon Valley days when it was just a nascent industry. Everybody's trying to figure out what's happening. Everybody's trying to figure out where we're going. I think it's really, really exciting, especially from a legalization standpoint. The regulatory tailwinds are really there. They're at our back, and frankly, pushing us forward much faster than I ever thought was going to happen. Even as we're halfway through 2021. So yeah, early days, super exciting, but moving in the right direction, no question.
Great. Okay, and Madison.
Yeah, I think obviously on the same page as Chris. For me, the thing that kind of excites me in this space is how I think we're going to really change medicine as we know it and recreational drugs as we know it. I think, the way people treat minor pains and sleep and, going out at night is all going to change over the next decade based off of this plant. So I think that, we're at the very beginning of that, as well as legalization and all the changes that are going to come along with that.
Perfect. And John.
Yeah, to kind of add on to what everyone's saying, I think it's really been what we're most excited about seeing right now is that, kind of the evolution of where it's coming. We've been in the industry for 3 years, and what we've seen in those 3 years is starting to see more branding and, people more involved in creating better packaging and product marketing, and the competition is just more and more fierce. And so people are kind of elevating their products, not only the way that people are consuming, but also the way that they're presenting and talking to these consumers. And so having those direct relationships is something that we're pretty excited about as brands and retailers begin to have those conversations.
Well, I think all of the three of you have been part of the theme of this conference, that the winds as you said, the winds in our back, and there is still a lot of potential growth, and soon more money is going to be unlocked and more opportunity to be unlocked as legalization happens. What's nice about our panel today is that you get to see the back of the house, the data, the numbers, the looks, and you get to see what's needed to make industry truly successful aside from just a good, solid project. So let's dig in because we have a little something for everybody today. It's a buffet of knowledge, and ask, what do you think the challenges are right now? And then that'll be able to connect with our audience so they can begin looking at what you can cover today. So, John, we'll start with you.
Today's chat, like from our perspective, we're constantly dealing with brands, dispensaries, and the challenge is how do they create brand awareness? If you're operating in a single state and you're moving into new markets, into new regions where you might be the largest product or the largest dispensary in a certain region, how do you now take that brand equity and go state to state to create this national presence? And so being able to utilize what you know about your existing customers and convert that into insights that you can provide for finding the next new consumer is kind of what we've seen as a problem that we're trying to solve and working on, and being able to help allow people to take a message in where you might have limited reach or limited opportunities or inventory, whether it's media channels or websites or applications or print or out of home or TV. And so as those channels begin to open up, how can we continue to create that message that resonates with people and kind of destigmatizes what a lot of preconceived notions might be about the industry or about products or about the ease of even that the purchase process, that like something that Duchy's working on a lot right now and making things really seamless as far as ordering ahead or delivery.
I 100% agree. As cross-pollination across state happens, that is a huge challenge. Madison, following up on the marketing side.
Yeah, I think, kind of dovetailing off of what John said, one of our biggest hurdles is attribution. As a performance marketing agency, we do a lot in consumer product goods and health, wellness, and beauty and e-commerce, right? Where every single click is tracked, every conversion rate, every cart value, all of those things are tracked, monitored, and optimized. In this space, we're not able to track any of that. And so we feel in the dark oftentimes. Luckily, we are kind of on the cutting edge of understanding what we can use, what we can look at, and understanding ways to track without actually having the true analytics. But I'd say attribution is probably the biggest pain point initially. And then once you can cross that checkpoint, like John said, brand awareness is really difficult. A lot of the mainstream channels that people use to get their brand out there, like Facebook and Google and TV, like the list goes on and on, Snapchat, Pinterest, LinkedIn, TikTok, the list goes on. It's really difficult to get your brand out there. When you do, getting them to actually take action and buy the product or sign up for your email list or following you on social, it's not always able to be tracked. And so you really have to look at things like brand lift, follower growth, email list growth as like anecdotal evidence that you're growing, which doesn't always relate to revenue growth. So I think those are probably the two biggest hurdles that we face on the marketing side.
And then, Chris, what do you think? The back of the house guy.
Yeah, so I'll just say, what John and Madison said is spot on. Customer education side, the fragmentation of state to state, localities. To touch on the back of the house, I think the operational complexity, just operating a storefront has very unique challenges in the cannabis industry. What we see, everything from compliance, requirements, and frankly the fear that can instill in an operator. Of making sure that every transaction is compliant, everything is tracked, seed to sale tracking systems. These are the law. This is how you absolutely must operate to keep your license. And that's just the start, right? That's just the state compliance. Providing a great shopping experience, providing a seamless and frictionless customer education experience. These are all really, really challenging things to do. And to what Madison just spoke on, off-the-shelf solutions are few and far between. So you really have to put your trust as an operator, and you have to put your capital in the hands of newer companies or newer initiatives or newer service providers, which definitely creates a lot of opportunity for a new market to explode like it has, where we're seeing cannabis specific software just coming out of the woodwork everywhere. But to continue to operate at scale, especially to John's point of building up that brand equity and operating in other markets, and having that same level of success when regulations are different state to state, when you're trying to provide a consistent experience for that customer that shops in Michigan versus that customer that might shop in California. Those are very serious challenges, and definitely provides a big opportunity.
I would 100%. So ultimately what I'm hearing, customers king. We need more customers. We need to know where our customers are and what our customers want. And then we need to be able to deliver to that customer in a timely way exactly what they want. So that kind of moves us into marketing. And luckily we have a marketing expert in the technology. So Madison, will you lead us about some of the solutions out there and things that can be done on the marketing side and technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited because there's so many changing technologies right now, and there's so many coming into fruition over the last 3 months and the coming kind of 12 months, with obviously the two people on our panel kind of leading the charge there. But right now, marketing in this space is pathetic. I would say that the branding, the positioning, the packaging, the social, the websites, the engagement with your customers is so poor that there's such a huge opportunity for brands that come in here and do it right. And we're seeing it start to happen a lot more with a few kind of newer brands that came up in the last 2 years, like really starting to stampede their way to the top, at least through awareness and funding. So I think there's a huge opportunity to leverage different tools in your marketing mix. Now, I think using on your web platform, I think having like apparel and stuff that is not THC focused in a Shopify store is a great way to start to get some anecdotal data, and a great way to kind of warm up your shopping cart and get people to buy products from you. And then having a separate website with all of your products, and then leveraging tools like Proper, Jane, Duchy, and all these other things to check out is starting to become a little bit more normal and a little bit more accepted than before. So people can actually go to the brand's website, add a product to the cart, check out using these plugins on your website, and actually have that product delivered to you. Now, on the brand side, you don't track a lot of that information, which is crazy, but that's kind of the direction that we're going. So I think that's something that we're really excited about. But people are just so massively overlooking how important it is to build a real brand from a messaging, positioning, social media, email list, web perspective, that there's a huge opportunity for brands in over the next coming years as legalization that kind of is impending to get ahead out of the competition and really own their customer base.
Does anybody have any other comments about media? And you're right, not only brand is important to get customers, but for companies that are looking to transition, having a strong brand under full legalization is what's going to be the driver to the package.
Yeah, I mean, if that was an opening, I'll take it. I'll take it.
There it is, John. It's all yours.
No, I mean, we hear it a lot, even with MSOs that we work with, that as they enter new states, they might be a market leader in 3, 4, 5 regions, and then as they enter their 6th, 7th, 8th, they've got to rebuild that brand equity. So I mean, people industry-wise, they know what that brand is, but when you're entering it from a consumer perspective, they're still new. And so playing with kind of how, like, do you want to go more with lifestyle imagery? Do you want to go more with product shots? Are you going to go more value-driven or luxury products? So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made there, and everyone has kind of their own set of personas or targets that they want to go after. But as far as like some of the things that we're seeing right now, like kind of on the flip side of what Madison was saying is, with what's been happening with the e-commerce providers, delivery partners, POS systems, being able to actually integrate the media directly into those systems, we've been getting pretty tied to like actual who's adding to bag, who's actually making the purchases, completing checkout. So providing that attribution solution is something we're really proud of at Surfside. I think that's something going to be kind of more commonplace with a lot of the other vendors as well in the future. And so being able to take that information, like attribution is something we tried to solve for really quickly. And now we're at the point where we're excited about is kind of the retargeting and the personalization. So being able to look at who added an item to their cart or abandoned cart and then serve them an ad that shows the product that they left in that cart, or being able to create audiences and personas based on the fact that they were looking at edibles or they've been looking at certain brands or products. And how can we take that type of information to create that experience that people generally, they get, oh, people are listening to me or getting creeped out by this, but ultimately they're seeing ads that are relevant to them. And it's a more enjoyable user experience rather than being bombarded with information that is kind of pushed to you or you're not opting in for. So, or are less relevant. So that type of kind of user experience and that type of marketing, I think is where we're at now. And being able to then attribute that so you can understand lifetime value, return on ad spend, getting into those analytics is going to be a big push for a lot of brands and dispensaries.
Oh, yeah.
And then the one thing I would add to that, in the platform that John and Surfside have provided, and the guidance that Madison's firm can really give, the larger MSOs, the more sophisticated operations, they're demanding these things from vendors like Duchy, right? They're demanding that we provide that same level of service as it comes to, attribution, marketing information, retargeting information, abandoned cart information. And we're definitely excited, continue working with companies like Surfside to really push, the e-commerce experience forward, well beyond where it was just a year ago from trying to just reach parity, frankly, with the rest of the e-commerce verticals. There's a lot of things that you can't yet do, or you still are just beginning to start to be able to do in the cannabis e-commerce world, that frankly you have in almost every other e-commerce vertical, given that there's very few off-the-shelf solutions that work here.
Do you want to bring anything else in, Madison, before we move on to the back of the house?
Yeah, I would just say, like, as frustrating as it can be at this current stage, I think there's so much optimism and excitement for the solutions that are being created as we speak that are going to not only give you an opportunity to find customers and drive traffic and convert online and, attribute all those conversions and figure out exactly what works and what doesn't. I think the frustration right now shouldn't be discouraging for the excitement ahead.
Great. So now that we've talked about the front of the house, let's talk about the back of the house, because that's where customers get frustrated and that's where owners get frustrated, is when things don't work as well. So, Chris, tell us what's available out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, the landscape for point of sale for e-commerce is highly competitive. We enjoy this competitive nature and this competitive landscape, frankly, because it's a big opportunity. The systems that are having success and are having this crazy growth that we're going through right now, really the systems that can be sticky, with their customers, because they're the ones that can move fast and iterate quickly. Everything in cannabis is about moving fast, whether it's changing regulations, changing customer expectations, just changing the entire product experience. We have to be able to move fast to frankly survive. So there's like I said, it's fairly saturated, which is of course is a good thing, right? Competition and choice for retailers is always a good thing. What we've really seen happen over the past couple of years, and especially as influenced by COVID, really is the explosion of e-commerce. I think, before COVID and before lockdowns, e-commerce was somewhat of an afterthought for retailers. Maybe it was additional revenue that they would have never have captured, but because they have an e-commerce, position, they might capture a customer. In a post-COVID world, things are much, much different now. Customers, for all verticals, are much more comfortable shopping for things online. And what we've really seen, and in recent months, developments of Duchy, is the frustration from retailers and operators in not having a unified system, right? You're buying 4 or 5 different platforms. You're dealing with 4 or 5 different account managers just to run your e-commerce operation, your website operation, your back of house, your inventory management, your seed to sale tracking, your reporting. And that's a lot of overhead. That's a lot of frustration. That's a lot of complexity. So where we see the opportunity going is more of a unified platform, right? Being able to manage and run your store from one system that you know, and you're only training on one system. So there's definitely a big push and a big opportunity in front of us to kind of create a single omni-channel unified experience. On top of that, we're really seeing the industry trending towards being much more sophisticated than they were even a year ago. John and Madison know this firsthand, but the demand for rich data with attribution, with the tracking that frankly people would just expect coming from other industries and starting to work in cannabis retail, these are incredibly important initiatives and things that as a retail technology provider has to be top of mind for us, and we have to continue pushing forward. If you draw parallels to the other e-commerce verticals, it's all there, and we're playing catch up, frankly, right now. But to Madison's point, it's an opportunity, and it's exciting. It's not something to be scared of. It's really something to be embraced and to work with awesome partners, like on this panel, to make sure that we're pushing forward and getting there and meeting the demands of our customers. And the last thing I'll touch on is definitely payments. The previous discussion before this panel, there was definitely mention of the Safe Banking Act. Everybody in this industry knows how much of a problem payments can be. Given that the payment networks, don't allow cannabis transactions right now. We're really looking forward to some legislation going through, whether it is the Safe Banking Act, hopefully it is, but that's going to be a really strong focal point, kind of understanding what the intersection between payment tech and the cannabis world can be before legalization at a broader scale.
So here's the $50,000 question for you, Chris. I know a lot of owners out there who feel that some of these solutions are very complicated, and that scares them off right off the bat. Is it easy for owners and easy for employees to kind of embrace some of these solutions?
I would say it's getting better. I wouldn't say that characterization is wrong. There's a lot of complexity to running an operation, and frankly, finding the right solution for your operation and the scale of your operation is really critical. We know that we have a lot of work to do to really bridge that kind of uncanny valley of, this is either a small business operation or this is a large scale MSO. There's a large TAM in between the two. Trying to figure out what the perfect solution there, really is for somebody is definitely something that we have a lot of work to do. I will say that, finding great partners, finding companies that you can trust and use language like this is a partnership, this isn't a customer, this isn't a customer vendor relationship. It's really important. Where everybody that's in cannabis today, they can kind of consider themselves the co-founders of this new market, and it's really important that everybody works to push cannabis towards a more normalized and just a much more familiar status.
Thank you. Madison, John, do you want to tag on to the back of the house?
Yeah, I mean, to the point where question just brought up, I mean, you could be on Salesforce, you can be on HubSpot, QuickBooks, whatever it is. None of these things, it's what you put into it, And so one of the big things we talk about a lot is if you're not putting good data in, you're not going to get good data out. So when it talks about like best practices, data entry, and making sure you're entering everything appropriately at the dispensary level or retail level, whatever it may be, the more thorough you are and the better those processes are, easier it's going to make Chris's job, Madison's job, my job as well. Because when we look at customer data and being able to onboard that, and getting really value out of those assets, the more the better your data collection process is, and the more consents and the more compliant you are, just the easier it is to get value out of those type of assets. And so none of this is easy, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it. So starting a business or running a business, there's definite complexities that go along with it that just have to be kind of par for the course.
Madison, do you have anything?
No, I think they touched on it all.
Well, the message what I hear is there's a solution out there. Don't be afraid of it. And it's well worth the time and effort for you and your employees, because it's only going to make you a bigger, healthier, stronger company. Is that what I hear?
That's right.
Well, as we're barreling forward, and as we've been the theme today, it seems that we're gaining speed in the industry. So John, maybe you should talk about a little bit of what can be done right now. What's a tech solution? How can we get things moving in a company? And will you lead that discussion and share of maybe any little tricks or anything that people need to know of figuring out what they may need?
Yeah, some of like the cooler stuff that we're doing is around really marrying all this together. And so like when you talk about using stuff that you're like, we found that like an underutilized asset is it could be your purchase data, your customer data, or your CRM or your loyalty program. So how can you connect all these disparate softwares or data sources together in order to get value out of them? And so creating kind of this halo effect, creating this single view of like someone who is going to your website, then going online, placing an order, but then maybe not completing the order, visiting the store, picking it up, joining your loyalty program. How can we connect all these different points so you can really understand that full customer journey? So I think that's kind of like the evolution of how we look at entering the space from like a customer data platform perspective, but really tying it directly and natively to your marketing initiatives. And so what we find really interesting about the cannabis space is the richness of the data of the cannabis consumer. And so when you look at like your e-commerce events, there's so much information that's like exponential more information that happens online in these digital ecosystems than when they're in their store. But what we're doing right now is kind of connecting those dots where we're able to say, well, this is your digital event. Here are your location events or stuff that's happening in store versus online versus your online program versus your out of home. And then how can we start utilizing all this information to really marry your back of house to your marketing solutions? Because what we find is that, being able to understand your existing customers is the best way to find out who your next customer is going to be. And creating a solution that allows you to connect all these dots just, to that first point where we kind of led us into this is the data entry and making sure you have the right processes in place. It's just going to make you that much more sophisticated in creating those type of edges that makes customer acquisition more cost effective. I can go on.
Chris?
Yeah, I think, what people should be doing right now really depends on their goal, right? One of my favorite things as we look at kind of building brands and scaling companies is, well, we always want to work backwards from a goal or what we think of as key objectives. With that said, I think there's a lot of things that people could be doing a lot better right now. And a lot of that has to do with developing and building the brand, right? I think right now there's such an overlook on things like your organic social media because you're not able to advertise and you're probably not going to convert and attract customers there right away. But holistically, you have to be omni-channel in order to compete at that top level. I think one of the things that some of the top brands are doing really well right now is creating a CBD brand with the same name, the same logo, different website, only CBD products, and using that as more of an e-commerce lead capture opportunity because there are less restrictions. There are more opportunities when it comes to CBD. Not as much as everything else, but still more than THC products. So that's one of the things that we're working on right now with some of the big logos is kind of creating a very similar brand that is just CBD products only and starting to really go after e-commerce revenue. And then on the back end of that transaction itself, maybe interact or introduce THC products, kind of talk about where they're located, how the brand came to be, and really get people to adopt and know and love these brands is one of the big focuses. And I think it's just so overlooked right now. I mentioned at the beginning of the call that I think the playbook right now for many of these bigger THC brands is to either have the strongest product on the shelf or the cheapest product on the shelf and get a really kick-ass sales team to get distribution in every dispensary humanly possible, knowing that when people come into that dispensary, they're either going to buy oftentimes the strongest or the cheapest. So brand doesn't necessarily come into the performance at this exact moment, but brand will absolutely come to performance over the next 12, 24, 36 months as this industry becomes more real. So I think, depending on your goal, what you should be doing right now changes, but I think there's a huge opportunity to effectively brand build currently.
Chris, do you have anything, or are we ready for the next question?
I'll just add something really quick, and just that, to add on top to everything that John Madison has mentioned, it's exciting to see these smaller operations, really start tapping into this world of really rich data and being able to drive a marketing position and a brand forward. We're definitely, we want to democratize cannabis for all. As a service provider, we also want to democratize, the abilities of a large scale MSO maybe down to a smaller, lower volume shop. I think that's a really exciting thing that technology, plays a big role in.
Well, a lot of people at this conference has their eye on the long game, which includes post-legalization, possible sales, or significant growth by pairing up with mainstream companies, a CVS, a Pfizer, a liquor company, etc. So what do you think about how are we positioned technology-wise, and your thoughts on off-the-shelf products and what's going to be needed for post-legalization for this integration into a more mainstream world?
Yeah, I think I can start off there. I think for the forecastable future, even with broad scale legalization, cannabis retail is always going to live in a highly regulated and frankly just an esoteric world. There's so much about cannabis that is brand new to a retail experience, whether it's e-commerce or in store. So I think there's some analogs that we've already seen. If you look at the Canadian markets, where you do have federal legalization, you do have legal payments. There's still a very, very high demand for more cannabis specific retail technology, and I think that runs the gamut. It's not just e-commerce menus. It's not just about point of sale. It spans the gamut to ad tech to marketing tech.
Yeah, and it's anything you could do to help make it easier for a transition if you're and to integrate into another company is always great. I'm sure John has an opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, and this is like speaks more to what Duchy and other e-com providers have done, but like when you look at their solutions, it's about real-time inventory management. And so like when people ask me like, hey, why can't Shopify do this, or why can't yada yada do this, or Google or Facebook, whatever it may be, and there is a different component. Like if you take compliance and everything outside of it, there's some natural technical like differentiators in this market. And so like real-time inventory management, like like as an example, if I were to use Instacart with Whole Foods and I order something, there's an option saying, if that orange juice is not there, would you like us to remove it from your bag or find a similar item? So that feature right there is something that like cannabis is solved for. And so I think there's a lot of cool things that are happening in cannabis specifically. When we started Surfside, we did not start a cannabis ad tech company or MarTech company. It was, we wanted to build a solution that helped people easily onboard first-party data and build out kind of proprietary taxonomy of audiences and then be able to measure it back to sales. It just so happens that our first clients were in cannabis, and we saw that this great opportunity in the space and how cannabis was really built as like a great proving ground for our technology. And, we decided to focus all of our really the majority of our efforts in this vertical because of where the industry was at and what we saw the opportunity in the way that everything was set up from the POS to the different integrations to the e-com. And I think that there'll be a lot of more technologies and a lot of cool solutions that will come out of this and very easily kind of go vertical to vertical and be able to gain market share in other industries as well.
Well, and I guess one of the things when you talk to the general public and they talk about cannabis retail, they forget the fact that it is much more complicated because it has consumable products. It's either flour or vape or edibles, which is food or even a drink. And they forget that there's shelf life and all this other stuff in there. And so having the right product that can help monitor that it's something that early on a lot of people don't fully recognize, because we get lots of people asking us questions at events. And so you're giving some excellent advice on go into this with open eyes and look toward the long way. And speaking of current news and the general public, people are kind of a little startled right now between the oil hack, the beef hack, everything kind of going at the power hacks. Anything that the cannabis industry needs to be aware of in cybersecurity and privacy?
Yeah, I mean, across all retail verticals, right? As you mentioned with recent events, recent attacks, privacy and data security have never ever been more important, and tomorrow they'll be even more important, right? So, cannabis is uniquely positioned in that I think there's just a slight degree more, given its ties to given its ties to black markets and given its ties to illegality of the product. You still have employers that ban this substance even though it could be legal in a state. It's really critical that a customer's purchase history, or even the fact that they shopped at a retailer that sells cannabis, doesn't leak and doesn't make it out to some list somewhere. These are all really, really critical components, and bisect that with the nascent phase of this industry and the tech companies that are part of it. It's really difficult, to bridge the gap right now. Young software companies, young startups, security isn't always top of mind, but at this part of the story, it absolutely must be. We also have this unique requirement for medical cannabis, right? That's PHI data. This is incredibly important and sensitive information. And frankly, if the vendors that you're working with, don't list privacy and security as their number one priority, you might want to raise an eyebrow at that. It's absolutely critical that customer information, patient information is protected. It couldn't be more important. I will say the good news is that, given where cannabis is, there's lots of very talented, experienced professionals that are more than happy and excited to work in the tech industry within the confines of cannabis. So I would say I'm bullish on the security posture of cannabis as a whole.
Well, in our last minute, because I know this has been riveting information, and I think solid, practical information people can take away, and I hope people reach out and contact y'all. But in our last minute, give me your 30 seconds. What do you want people to take away from this conversation today? Madison, you talked the least in the last few minutes.
Yeah, I would say, take the time to understand who your brand is and build it out, own it and love it. Trust that it'll work in the long run. It might not have a direct ROI right away, but actually building a brand is going to be something that's worth it in the long run.
And my guess is you have to be proactive about that.
Absolutely. A lot of proactivity and a lot of great people on your team. That's the hardest part.
John?
Yeah, I would second that and just say, the customer demand's there, but it doesn't mean that you can't be proactive as far as the efforts that should be taken, and as far as getting your name out and setting the framework for tomorrow, right? And so making sure that you put the infrastructure in place and the processes and the marketing structure, whatever it may be, in order to continue to kind of grow once maybe that other dispensary, that other brand starts getting a little bit more aggressive or opens up down the street.
And Chris?
Yeah, I guess I would just say, from a philosophical standpoint, look for partners, not necessarily vendors in this space, right? We're all co-founders of an industry, so we take that seriously, and we want to all work together to normalize, cannabis's position in the world.
Well, here's what I'm taking away from that. You've all told us that there's some great things out there that y'all could do, or it's on the market that's available. But if you put in the effort, you could reap great rewards. And to build a strong foundation, to build either a future to grow in the company to grow in the future, or a company that someone else can grow in the future. Hey guys, y'all have been phenomenal. I hope the crowd reaches out to y'all. It's been great today. And now I'm going to turn it back to Patrick to let the day continue on.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you, JJ. Thank you, Chris, John, Madison. You guys were all phenomenal. Wow, such great companies, absolutely killing it in this space. We really appreciate having them on today. And JJ, really, really wonderful job leading that discussion, man. Thank you.